The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Wrestling to the Max, NXT Review.
I'm taking back what's mine, I ain't giving in to what they tell me, nah, I ain't listening. Can't deny I was made for this, shove it back in the faces and say
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Wrestling to the Max's NXT review for August 9th, 2017. And we are brought to you by W2Mnet.com. That's right. And also 411mania.com. And just to give you guys a heads up, if you haven't done it already, go subscribe at Wrestling to the Max, wherever you get your podcasting from. And, you know, of course, if you love everything over there at the W2Mnet.com, hey, search out Wrestling to the Max's network, which is the W2M network. That's right. It's the place where you go find not only our great stuff, but a lot of other great wrestling content and a lot more. Of course, you know, YouTube is also there to go subscribe to as well, if you're down with that. So there you go. That's all the platforms we're a part of. We appreciate everybody who goes and checks it out. And, of course, don't forget to go ahead and, you know, like I said, subscribe, rate, and review. I am Gary Vaughan, and, of course, your host tonight is Mr. Paul Leazar.
Heyo.
And, Paul, I'm glad to have you back this week. You know, last week we had Harry fill in for you, and Harry Broadhurst is a great, you know, co-host, too. He's a guy that's kind of become the staple of SmackDown Live and 205 Live, so we appreciate him filling in. Had a lot of fun conversations with him. I don't know if you got a chance to hear that one, but it was kind of funny. We had this weird banter back and forth it's just fun, so...
I really enjoy podcasting with Harry. He thinks very, very differently than I think you and I and Sean do. So, I mean, I've done some Wrestling Unwrapped episodes with him and Patrick, of course, but and the Raw Reaction, we used to do that every once in a while too. And he thinks differently. It's always entertaining.
It's a great treat. You know, I'm you know, glad that he is basically helping co-host the SmackDown Live and 205 shows because of that reason. I mean, he does things so out of the box compared to what we do. And a lot of times we are just kind of like, yeah, I agree. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, okay. And it's, you know, I wish we had one of us really just kind of completely hate some of the ideas the other had, but it doesn't always work that way. But at least we do have Harry who is able to do that and say, guys, you're not thinking of this, or maybe think of this. So it's really cool. And we appreciate him once again joining me last week. But I'm glad to have you back here with me, buddy. So let's jump into this week's NXT, man.
Let's jump into it because we're getting closer and closer to Brooklyn 3, and they waste no time starting to hype you up for that because they open with Nikki Cross taking over the ring, going nuts as she always does, and then they have Killian Dane and Alexander Wolf come in with her, and they're calling out, or Nikki really is calling out the Authors of Pain, screaming and ranting and doing the thing we love her for, and that's being just an absolute psychopath. AOP shows up with Paul Ellering. They walk down to the ring. However, they get jumped by Eric Young. Young ends up handcuffing Akam, I believe, to the barricade. And then Razor is left alone in the ring to get his butt handed to him for a while. And eventually, Akam busts the guardrail off of the supports on the stands, which is pretty cool. Drags it to the ring with him only to get beat down some more. So I really like this, right? I mean, Sanity doing what they do best and splitting people up and being, you know, the numbers game and all that. It makes them feel like they have a chance, because I don't know if you could necessarily say that the teams challenging the Authors of Pain really all the way since last year in the Dusty Rhodes Classic ever really felt like they had a great chance of winning and defeating them.
Yeah, and this is something that they really needed to do because really the Authors of Pain have never looked vulnerable until now. Mm-hmm. And for Sanity to do this, it's something also that really needs to be done because Sanity has looked very vulnerable.
Yes.
So it's odd for me to say that because, you know, earlier, you know, when they started this whole thing out with Sanity, I was saying, oh my God, they're the most dominant. Who can beat them? They're going to own all the gold in NXT. And the next thing you know, they're losing here, then they lose here, then they lose there. And then now I'm kind of like, well, you know, they're a good team. Yeah. So now this reaffirms that, hey, Sanity is no one to be messed with either. The Authors of Pain, yes, they're dominant, but really, let's be honest, Sanity has a little bit of a brain behind him when it comes to Eric Young, right? And him devising the plans like he did in this one. It's great also, I want to point this out too, that Eric Young was a part of this because we had that kind of question. I think even me and Harry may have touched on this. Where's Eric Young? Where's he at? Why is he not showing up? Things like that have kind of dumbfounded us a little bit lately because he's not been a part of NXT, but now he's showing up here and they devise this great plan. I think it's great, and to me it makes all sense in the world, and it makes you a little bit more excited about that match. I think it just kind of gives you that visual that, hey, there's always that chance that AOP gets outsmarted again.
Yeah, I agree completely with that sentiment, and I think they've done a great job so far, I think, of just showing you why a match between these two teams is going to be really fun, because if you have AOP together, they're going to run you over. If Sanity's able to do what they do and play the numbers game and separate them, they're going to win, right? So I think that just really plays up and helps establish their identity for both teams even more, which I absolutely love.
I'm right there with you. And, and one thing I will say about the Authors of Pain, too, is we can't forget that Paul Ellering is out there. Right. I think we need to remember that, too, because he didn't do anything here, but when we do have that big match in Brooklyn, don't be surprised if he has some things up his sleeve as well. Because, this guy, this isn't his first tag team that's been dominant in his wheelhouse. So we have to, put that into play. And they can also touch on that. I wish they would touch on that some, but maybe they're not trying to. Maybe they don't want to put focus on the past with Paul Ellering. But if they did, I don't think it's a bad idea because, my God, what a great history he has.
Yeah, he took a bullet for him during that ladder match too. So, there's history there too. We get a video package that Asuka and Ember Moon are going to sign their contract for their big title match next week, which will be the go home episode, and then you get some clips of the big brawl they had last week, which I loved that personally. I thought that was great. Asuka just slapping the bejesus out of Ember Moon was just 10 out of 10, really.
Yeah.
And then Billie Kay and Peyton Royce give a makeup tutorial, but Ruby Riott walks around in the background and throws them all off, and they get all pissed off and make fun of her, and now they don't want to do it because she's ruined their mood. And I'm just sitting here thinking about the Emperor's New Groove.
Oh, man, that's awesome. I would have never thought of that until you said that, Paul. Oh, man. But yeah, I this Peyton Royce and Billie Kay thing, I've said this before. I think it's great. If they're not going to be in the matches, if they're not going to be doing anything else, they do this great. It's so much fun. And, when they finally do get back in the ring and have these matches, at least you still remember them and still kind of care what they're doing. And they're just setting themselves up for a match against Ruby Riott, at least one of them. So I think that's a really fun thing, and I think this was humorous. It had some good components of it, so I have nothing to complain about that, So we'll have to see how they do progress in the storyline, though, because I'm kind of curious which one of these ladies is going to be facing off against Ruby Riott. Or maybe they have Ruby Riott team with somebody else. I don't know.
Yeah, there's that babyface locker room that they haven't been using so much since the focus has been purely on the big title match they're building up for Brooklyn, so I don't know. I'd be interested if Ruby could find a pal or something like that. And then after that, we get the long-awaited debut of the Street Profits. Angelo Dawkins and Montez Ford take on the Metro Brothers, who are a team that's been trained by the Dudley Boys and basically look like Deuce and Domino without the big hair. This is a squash for the Street Profits, really show off what they can do. This feels like an act that can work. Angelo Dawkins, after, I guess, sort of drifting around NXT for maybe the past 2-3 years, finally found his calling card, and I thought he was great in this. And then Montez Ford, who I haven't seen a whole lot of at all, I just absolutely wowed you. That dude is quick and has no problem showing it off either.
Oh, I agree. This is kind of the way I felt like Angelo Dawkins had to be premiered, or at least, showcased, if I could say it that way. That's probably the better terminology. But I've watched him for a while now and noticed he has ability, but just really not the ability to get over. Not really a guy that has the charisma to do it all by himself. But you kind of see the perfect storm here now when he's got a tag team partner that kind of has some shared likeness, has a common goal, and really can kind of bounce things off of each other. I think it just works so much better for Dawkins. And Montez Ford, I don't know anything about this guy. I think we may have seen him here sprinkled there. I just don't remember him a whole lot. But needless to say, I know him now. Mm-hmm. And, with the way that they've been portraying themselves and some of the video packages and just that high energy excitement that they bring to the table, it's really fun. It's good. They've basically got some characters here that can really, I think, grab people, right? I mean, it's kind of a little bit of a stereotype. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
it's a little bit of a stereotype, and it's nothing crude or anything, but it's a stereotype that I think, there are people that actually live that lifestyle who watch this product. Mm-hmm. And, you don't have to live the lifestyle to like them, like me. I'm not exactly, anything, hip hop style, or, I don't wear headbands or do anything like that. But guess what? These guys are fun and I'm enjoying them. There's so much, I think, left on the bone when it comes to these guys that we'll never know until they get into these bigger matches. But I think right now, this is kind of cool. They finally made their debut. I'm happy what I'm seeing here. This is a squash match. I mean, what are you going to say, right? So I'm glad about the Street Profits. What was the other tag team's name?
The Metro Brothers.
Metro Brothers. Well, now, what's up with that gimmick, Paul? The Metro Brothers. Where the heck does that come? When I think of Metro, I think of like guys on a bus or something.
The Metro is the name for, I think, the train in New York.
Okay.
And there's like, do you remember Deuce and Domino at all from back on the SmackDown days? It's essentially the same gimmick, it feels like, without maybe the overall greaser feel, but it's total 50s for sure.
It is. They lack cherry, though.
They do lack cherry.
Yeah, so without cherry, it doesn't, have that on top. But, I'm really curious why they picked this gimmick. And I know that, people may remember Deuce and Domino. Heck, people say they may remember what the Happy Days is. I don't know. But, I mean, I just think that that's a little outdated. I don't know why you would choose this gimmick. I just don't. I don't get it.
I don't have a strong reasoning why they might have done this, but this obviously could have just been a tryout for them, too. I don't think they've been wrestling very long, and unless they've just come highly touted from the Dudley Boys, they may not stick around in NXT at all, but I think the 50s thing has some legs. It's easy to be, have the outdated beliefs of an America of long past gone by, so, obviously that could get them into some hot water, but, I think there's promise in a 50s gimmick if they want to go full bore with it.
Yeah, I'm just imagining the controversies now,
Yep.
Just don't ride on the bus with those guys. They may have some things to say. I get you, and there, I guess, could be some legs. I just think of today's generation and the way that they probably perceive the past. See, the thing is today's generation perceives the past as that was the 1980s were like ancient, right? Mm-hmm. Like that was way too long ago. When I was I was born in the 80s, basically more thoughtful in the 90s. I thought the 50s were ancient. And so, of course, people like my dad, born in the 50s and all that, it's not so far away. But just to me, it's a little bit distant. It's like coming out with a Western gimmick or something to me. But, hey, there's probably some legs, like you said, things that these guys can do. They're really, honestly, jobbers. They're just here to train. It's nothing big. I'm blowing this out of proportion. I just thought it was interesting. I thought it was something that I wanted to kind of throw off you and see what you thought about it, because I just thought it was a little goofy.
Yeah, in the old 50s greaser thing, like, those guys were perceived to be tough, and they'd seem to do the same thing Deuce and Domino do. They just punch you in the mouth. And I ain't got no problem with that, honestly.
Oh, I don't either. And I will say this. I like the tape that they had on. It made them look like brawlers. It made them feel like brawlers. So I appreciated that part of it.
Absolutely. After that fun squash, we get confirmation that Hideo Itami and Tyler Black is official for Brooklyn. So expect all of the kicks to the faces. And then we have this wonderful segment with Bobby Roode and Drew McIntyre going face-to-face, talking about their upcoming title match at NXT. Roode does his shtick, McIntyre does his shtick, and eventually they're interrupted by Roderick Strong, who doesn't even care about the title anymore. He just wants to get back at Bobby Roode for, insulting his fiance and insulting his family and his, everything that really Roderick Strong is. And he wants to fight Bobby Roode at the nearest convenience. And this leads Regal to say, you know what, I told you this isn't how you're supposed to go about doing this. And they keep cutting each other off. And eventually, Bobby Roode says, I will fight you anytime, anywhere, Roderick Strong, if you can beat Drew McIntyre next week. And there's a big hubbub about whether they should do the match with Brooklyn so close. And eventually, it gets made. So next week on NXT, Drew McIntyre will take on Roderick Strong one-on-one. These guys had phenomenal matches in Evolve, and if they get some time, prepare to have your socks blown off.
I cannot wait to watch that match. It's going to be a lot of fun, I'm expecting. And I think this was interesting for the fact that we kept talking about the triple threat. And Harry and I were discussing this last week because I was very against a triple threat. Mm-hmm. And Harry was, kind of saying, well, Gary, this is actually something that could be fun. I mean, you don't want to see all three of these guys in a triple threat. I mean, come on, the talent in the ring is amazing. I'm like, well, I get that. But at SummerSlam, I'm already going to have 50 multi-man matches. I don't want to see it the night before. I'm like, it's way overkill. Come on.
Right.
Outside of that, the way they're going to do it here, the way they showed me, okay, I'm happy now. Okay, Let's just get this out of the way. Roderick Strong, Drew McIntyre, whoever wins gets a one-on-one match with, the glorious one, Bobby Roode. So I'm cool with that. The one thing, though, I'm really fighting myself is the fact, is that really going to happen? Because I can honestly see next week shenanigans where they have the triple threat anyway. I don't know who to put over, and that's why I think shenanigans. I don't know if I could honestly say, sorry, Roderick, you got to wait a little longer, and Drew gets his shot. Or Roderick, hey, you steal the win from Drew. Let Drew sit back. I don't know. I'm kind of curious what you think about all this, Paul. I really am, because I'll say this. When I was kind of debating with Harry seems to think that Drew doesn't even need this. Drew's going to go to the main roster. He's probably never going to get an NXT title shot or hold the NXT title. I don't know if that's true or not. How do you feel about it?
So, first things first, if Drew and Bobby's going to happen no matter what at TakeOver for the championship, that match set in stone per Regal this week. If Strong beats McIntyre next week, he's the next man up to face Bobby for whoever holds the NXT championship, I guess, afterwards. Although I guess they never really addressed that either. But at any rate, Bobby will face Roderick if he can beat Drew after TakeOver. That's where it is. If he wins, of course. And now, triple threat wise, I don't think it's going to happen at all. This seemed like they were vehemently telling people, expect a one-on-one match here, and if Roddy wins this, then he'll get this here, and it'll be one-on-one again. That's great. I don't know if we need a triple threat. I'm kind of with you. With as great a talent as these guys have, I'm sure it would be great. But watching them go one-on-one is sort of, what I want to see personally. So I kind of don't want the triple threat just because they always feel slave to the formula. One guy on the outside, and then everybody else will fight, and then they'll switch, and so on and so forth until you get down to the wire. Moving, I guess, past that, the NXT Championship now is representative of somebody who they want and thinks can carry the show up on the main roster. So if they feel like Drew can do that already, then no, he wouldn't get the NXT Championship. But at the same time, I mean, Drew's coming back in and seemingly wants to reestablish himself, and I don't know how long he's going to be down here in NXT, but with all the signees coming in, maybe he's going to get pushed up sooner than later. I kind of want to see him get a run with the championship here, and I'm sure WWE wouldn't mind either, because this is somebody who they very, very much had a lot invested in the first time around, and thought he was going to get him, be a great main eventer for a long time to come, and that didn't pan out, and now he's back, and this is a great way to test that. If you're not 100% sure about him, then I say give him the belt. Because you've seen what Bobby can do with it. I love Bobby as champion personally. I hope he does retain. But I honest to God wouldn't be surprised if Drew wins it on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. I think that McIntyre, holding that belt could do some good for himself, and of course, really give him that, little bit of a run before he does move on. But I do think that Bobby Roode, really, honestly, in a way, holding that title for him just does him a lot more favors. Mm-hmm. I just feel like it does. Not that, Bobby Roode has to have a title to look good, because that's not true at all. Bobby Roode's great. But I just think right now with the character that he's portraying, everything he's doing, it just works. It has that even flow. Whereas, McIntyre having it and running with it, however long they wanted to do it, and Roderick Strong, all that stuff going on, I just don't know. I have a feeling some way, somehow, Bobby Roode is going to win, I think. But, maybe next week we'll have that different conversation. Maybe something will happen and I'll be singing a different tune. Right now, I still feel good about Bobby Roode. And I like all three of these guys. That's my problem. I go back and forth and who I think should hold the title and this and that. And it's a really difficult situation. Well, we've talked about this all the time, very top heavy in NXT. So we'll find out. But I think what they did here with this promo and everything, and you kind of spelled out how it's going to go down, I think that they did a good job booking all that. I really, really do. So it makes me happy. It doesn't sit here and make me have a headache. At least I know a direction.
Yeah, I mean, a direction. There's just so many ways to go from that direction, and you want to see all of them, and it's just not going to happen. That's the depressing part.
Yeah, that's true. But you get used to being disappointed sometimes.
That's true. That is true. So after that wonderful segment, you have Johnny Gargano get a backstage interview where he talks about a singles match last week, and he remembers the reaction DIY got in Brooklyn last year, and he really wants to still be on that show no matter in what capacity. And now the single star, he's got to try to find an opponent. Later on in the evening, we'll get there later. For Danny Burch, after that, takes on Oney Lorcan. This is that rematch that they agreed to some weeks ago after they basically beat the bejesus out of each other. And then they come back and do it again. About 10 minutes. I wouldn't say this was as good as the first time around. It was missing, I think, that extra little bit of intensity, or that next level of intensity that they had in the other one. But what we got here was still pretty good. And this time around, Danny Burch comes out on top. So now they're tied 1-1. And I, honest to God, wouldn't be surprised if we get the third one on the NXT tapings before Brooklyn. But I don't know. There's also a lot of talk amongst fans that maybe these two get paired up and get a run in the Dusty Classic together too.
And I'm glad you brought that up. I see these two guys, especially the way this match ended. Danny Burch getting the victory, and at the end here, showing all the respect in the world to Oney Lorcan, right? Mm-hmm. I think that right there kind of shows me, hey, these guys all of a sudden have brand new respect for each other. A tag team could be in our future. And I'm right there with you. And I really didn't think about the tournament coming up, but I thought, ooh, this is great because this is a tag team right away for basically a place that needs tag teams. They desperately need new tag teams, and I think this is good if they do go in that direction. This match itself, I think you're right. It was a little bit slower. It didn't have that aggression that you had in the first matchup. But, I think maybe they kind of had to pull themselves back, because if they do have another match, let's say, like you're talking about Brooklyn here, I think they're going to have to up it again, and I think that at least they can from here. Mm-hmm. So we'll see if they actually decided to go that route and have that next matchup. But needless to say, I still love those guys. I think that they're great against each other. I would love to see them as a team. They have a similar look. I think the way they have a little bit of chemistry here, it's going to be positive, no matter if they're a team or they go against each other. I think all of that's good in general.
Yeah, plus, watching these two try to go toe-to-toe with the AOP would just be awesome, in my opinion. But we'll just have to wait and see if that does come to pass. As Gary mentioned after the match, Oney Lorcan initially refuses the handshake afterwards, but then comes back. and shakes his hand. So maybe a tag team might be a little rough, but, begrudging respect could win out. We never know.
Mm-hmm.
And that leads us to our main event as Andrade Cien Almas takes on No Way Jose. Cien, of course, has Zelina Vega, who's, of course, I'm forgetting her actual name now. I was afraid I was going to forget her NXT name. Thea Trinidad, that's it.
Yes, there you go.
This is essentially an extended squash. Almas gets in there, hits some corner knees. Vega wants Almas to finish him off now, and does so with a hammerlock DDT. And then afterwards, Zelina gets into the ring and says, Johnny Gargano, you're looking for a match at Brooklyn? Well, you got one. Almas will meet you there. So, I'm really looking forward to that because I think those two can put on something really great. And they Zelina Vega, Thea Trinidad, just such a great addition. I know we talked about this last time we did NXT together, but really felt like she added a whole ton to the character, and he feels so fresh now, which is great.
Oh, definitely. And this is proof that they want to do something with him, and they're trying. It's kind of funny, because when we first saw Cien Almas, we thought to ourselves, this guy's a great indie wrestler. He's here finally. We'll get a chance to see him have all these big matches. And then he kind of came in flat. Mm-hmm. Like, there's that language barrier. There's the problem for the fact that they didn't know how to really use him, I don't think, at first. I don't think they had the right plan in place. And all of a sudden, they kind of started saying, hey, guys, let's think of something new. And instead of just getting rid of the guy, they said, let's go ahead and make him a heel. Let's make him, a little bit more tougher. And let's give him a voice, which is now, Vega. So I think it's super cool. I think it makes sense. I think he looked like a brand new person, especially in this match. I thought it was great. No Way Jose's fun. He's kind of one of those guys. It's kind of the upper mid card, I guess you would say. So Cien almost beating him, it's a big deal.
Yeah,
I really feel like that. I mean, they've made No Way Jose a guy that you have to basically overcome, and so that's what's positive here. Almost looks pretty darn good coming out. Then you have, of course, Vega giving you something to really make you understand, hey, he's here to stay. He's also a guy that's here to take on that big baby face in Johnny Gargano. So I think it's a really sweet situation for that. And I think it's a matchup we're all looking forward to seeing now, because I never thought this was going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Gargano's been a DIY pretty much his whole run in NXT so far. And Almas, as you said, has bounced around. Initial babyface, had the heel turn, party guy, has these great matches earlier this year, really, I guess, is when it started. And maybe that match with Roddy is what decided the NXT guys to be like, you know what, this guy really does have something. Let's not cast him out. Let's figure out what we can do with him and make sure we keep this guy around. And they're on the right track so far, I think. So that's NXT for the week. Lovely, lovely episode. If you have the network, go watch it. If you don't have the network, find a way to watch it. Just good stuff.
Yeah, I thought this was a pretty solid episode. I talked with Harry about last week's episode. I said, man, they did just everything from start to finish was really fun, really great. And I was worried about this week. I thought when we got into this week, we were going to take a dip. I don't think they took too much of a dip. I think they still gave you a pretty solid episode. So I'm very, very happy with that. And hopefully the go-home show before we get to Brooklyn is going to be just as good. So let's look forward to that. I'm really excited about it all. Let's, get ready for next week's review, because I think it's going to be so much more fun. But yeah, guys, of course, if you want to come find out all our other NXT reviews, maybe you're going to hear SmackDown Live, 205, Raw, everything we do here, you guys need to make sure you go ahead and check out W2Mnet.com. And of course, make sure you follow us and subscribe, rate, and review over there at Wrestling to the Max or the W2M Network, whatever one you choose. Just go find one, go subscribe, rate, and review. And of course, check out YouTube, because it's another place. If you guys listen on YouTube regularly, we want to make sure that everybody else knows that that's available. So there you go. Of course, make sure you go check out those other great shows. We've talked about Harry Broadhurst several times on this. Go check out Wrestling Unwrapped. It's a great show. Him and Patrick Ketza do awesome things over there. Go check out that, and a lot of other great shows on the network that you don't want to miss. We just added a new wrestling show over there as well. Great content. We don't want you guys to miss a minute of the action. That's why we push all this at the beginning and end. So there you go, guys. Thanks a lot for joining us. I am Gary Vaughan. He is Paul Leazar, and we'll catch you guys down the road.
Have a good one, guys.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.